There's something hauntingly beautiful about a person's last words, especially when they belong to those larger-than-life figures we call legends. For actors who spent their lives delivering lines from a script, their final words are unscripted, raw, and deeply human. It's in those fleeting moments that fame fades, and what's left is a simple truth. Mortality comes for everyone, even Hollywood's brightest stars. Some went out with humor, others with defiance. A few whispered words of love, while others left us with chilling reflections of their lives. These last sentences offer a window into their souls, whether it was regret, peace, or one final performance for those around them. In the end, it's not the Oscars or the box office numbers we remember. It's these small, powerful moments that echo long after the lights go out. And no one embodied that blend of wit and vulnerability better than Humphrey Bogart, whose final words were as sharp as the characters he played. Even facing death, Bogart couldn't resist one last clever remark, a reminder that legends never really drop the act. Humphrey Bogart: "I should never have switched from scotch to martinis." Humphrey Bogart, the ultimate tough guy of Hollywood's golden age, faced his final moments the same way he lived: gritty, sharp, and with a glass in hand. As he lay dying from esophageal cancer in 1957, weakened by years of heavy drinking and smoking, Bogart's last words weren't dramatic or tearful. Instead, they were laced with his signature dry humor. "I should never have switched from scotch to martinis." It was the perfect exit line for a man who built his career playing hard-edged characters with a soft center. Behind the scenes, Bogart was battling immense pain, but he chose to leave the world with a joke, a wink at his own vices, and a nod to the persona fans adored. His passing marked the end of an era, but those final words kept his legend alive. It was as if Bogart had written his own farewell, ensuring that even in death, he remained the cool, unshaken icon we saw on screen. But where Bogart used humor, another Hollywood giant showed a different side in his final moments. John Wayne, the symbol of rugged masculinity, revealed a tender heart with his last words. John Wayne: "Of course I know who you are. You're my girl. I love you." John Wayne, the towering cowboy, the war hero, the embodiment of American grit. For decades, the Duke was a symbol of strength and stoicism. But when stomach cancer finally brought him to his deathbed in 1979, his last words weren't those of a hardened gunslinger, they were words of love. As his daughter stood by his side, worried that he no longer recognized her, Wayne softly reassured her, "Of course I know who you are. You're my girl. I love you." It was a rare glimpse into the gentle, protective father behind the Hollywood legend. For a man who played larger-than-life roles, this quiet, heartfelt goodbye showed that even icons are fathers first. Wayne's final words weren't about battles or bravery. They were about family, proving that beneath the bravado was a man who valued love above all. But not every star welcomed comfort in their final moments. Joan Crawford, known for her fierce independence, met death with defiance, just as she had lived. Joan Crawford: "Damn it, don't you dare ask God to help me." Joan Crawford wasn't known for softness. She was a force, unyielding, ambitious, and always in control. So it's no surprise that when death came knocking in 1977, Crawford faced it on her own terms. As her housekeeper knelt beside her, praying aloud, Crawford mustered her final words: "Damn it, don't you dare ask God to help me." It was a statement as bold as the woman herself, rejecting pity, rejecting surrender. Crawford's entire life had been a battle for autonomy, clawing her way from poverty to Hollywood royalty. Even as her body failed, her spirit refused to bow. Her last words became a testament to the iron will that defined her career and personal life. Joan Crawford didn't ask for salvation. She demanded to meet death head-on, without assistance, without fear. And while Crawford fought to the end, another legend, Bette Davis, took a moment to sum up her entire life in a single powerful sentence. Bette Davis. She did it the hard way. Bette Davis was never one to take shortcuts. Known for her fierce talent and fiery attitude, she carved out a place in a male-dominated industry by refusing to play by anyone else's rules. As she neared the end of her life in 1989, after battling cancer and a series of strokes, Davis reflected on her journey. Her final words weren't spoken to those around her. They were a reflection of how she wanted to be remembered. She did it the hard way. It was a nod to the obstacles she faced and the strength it took to overcome them. Davis wasn't handed fame. She fought for every role, every accolade, every ounce of respect. Her last words weren't a lament. They were a badge of honor. In the end, Bette Davis didn't fade quietly. She left behind a legacy of resilience, talent, and unapologetic grit, sealed with a sentence that captured the essence of a woman who never took the easy path. But while Davis reflected on a life well fought, James Dean's final words were a chilling reminder that sometimes legends don't get the chance to look back. They're gone in an instant. James Dean, that guy's gotta stop. He'll see us. James Dean lived fast, and tragically, he died even faster. At just 24 years old, Dean had already become the face of youthful rebellion, starring in Rebel Without a Cause and capturing a generation's restless spirit. But on September 30th, 1955, while driving his beloved Porsche 550 Spyder, Dean uttered his chilling final words. "That guy's gotta stop. He'll see us." Moments later, his car collided head-on with another vehicle. Dean was killed instantly. There's a cruel irony in the fact that someone who symbolized living on the edge met such a sudden, violent end. His last words weren't poetic. They were a real-time reaction, a desperate hope that never came true. And yet, those words became legendary, freezing Dean in time as the ultimate symbol of youth cut short. His death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the beginning of a myth. James Dean became immortal, not because of the roles he would play, but because of the ones he never got to. His final words serve as a stark reminder that sometimes legends are born the moment life ends. While Dean's final moments were filled with fear, another Hollywood giant, Clark Gable, faced his end with a sense of peace and perhaps a longing for a familiar face waiting on the other side. Clark Gable. "I'm lucky. I'm finally going to see Marilyn." Clark Gable, forever known as the King of Hollywood, built his legacy on charm, strength, and that unforgettable role in Gone with the Wind. But in his final days in 1960, Gable wasn't thinking about fame or film. Instead, his last words revealed a personal reflection. "I'm lucky. I'm finally going to see Marilyn." Just weeks before his death, Gable had finished filming The Misfits alongside Marilyn Monroe. The two shared a bond, both icons weighed down by the pressures of stardom. Monroe, battling her own demons, had become a symbol of Hollywood's darker side, a side Gable knew all too well. When Gable died of a heart attack at age 59, some believed his words hinted at more than just a co-star connection. It was as if he saw peace in reuniting with a kindred spirit, sensing that both he and Marilyn belonged to a world that never truly let them rest. Tragically, Monroe would pass just 2 years later. Gable's final words remind us that even Hollywood royalty aren't immune to the loneliness that often comes with fame. While Gable reflected on lost friends, Errol Flynn faced his final moments with no regrets, leaving the world with a toast to a life lived on his own wild terms. Errol Flynn, I've had a hell of a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Errol Flynn was the definition of Hollywood's golden bad boy, swashbuckling on screen and scandalous off it. Known for roles in The Adventures of Robin Hood and a lifestyle filled with parties, affairs, and controversy, Flynn never apologized for who he was. So, when he died of a heart attack at just 50 in 1959, his final words were exactly what you'd expect from a man who embraced excess. I've had a hell of a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. There was no fear, no regret, just a final smirk at a life lived in the fast lane. Flynn knew his reputation and wore it proudly. His last words weren't just a reflection, they were a declaration that he wouldn't have changed a thing. While many stars are remembered for their discipline and dedication, Flynn is remembered for his recklessness and for making it look glamorous. His farewell was the ultimate nod to a life less ordinary. But while Flynn celebrated his final moments, Marilyn Monroe's last words were wrapped in mystery, just like her life, and especially her untimely death. Marilyn Monroe, say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to Jack, and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy. Marilyn Monroe was the world's most famous woman, an icon of beauty, vulnerability, and tragic fame. On August 4, 1962, during what would be her final phone call, Monroe ended the conversation with a cryptic farewell. Say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to Jack, and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy. Hours later, she was found dead from an apparent overdose. Her last words have fueled decades of speculation. Was she saying goodbye because she knew what was coming? Were these casual remarks or a veiled cry for help? With her rumored ties to the Kennedy family, referenced in that very call, the mystery deepened. Marilyn's death at just 36 became one of Hollywood's greatest tragedies. Her final words, like her life, remain shrouded in unanswered questions. She was a woman adored by millions, but seemingly alone in her final hours. And while Monroe's death was surrounded by secrets, Paul Walker's final moments were heartbreakingly simple, a casual invitation that would lead to a tragedy no one saw coming. Paul Walker. Hey, let's go for a drive. Paul Walker wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol of speed, adrenaline, and heart, thanks to his role in the Fast and Furious franchise. But on November 30th, 2013, life tragically imitated art. Before stepping into a Porsche Carrera GT with a friend, Walker casually said, "Hey, let's go for a drive." Minutes later, both men were killed in a fiery crash. Walker's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood and his devoted fan base. Known for his off-screen humility and charity work, he wasn't the typical celebrity. His love for cars wasn't just a role, it was real passion. Those simple last words reflect the tragic innocence of that moment. It wasn't a reckless joyride, it was just Paul being Paul. Yet, in that everyday phrase, fate delivered a cruel twist. His passing at 40 left a hole in the hearts of millions, and a legacy that extended far beyond the silver screen. His final words remind us how life can change in an instant, and how even casual goodbyes can become immortal. While Paul Walker's final words were spoken in the calm before tragedy, Heath Ledger's last conversation carried a quiet reassurance, one that, heartbreakingly, proved false just hours later. Heath Ledger, Katie, I'll be fine. Heath Ledger was a rising star whose talent seemed limitless. At just 28, he had already delivered unforgettable performances, but behind his success was a man battling inner demons, struggling with insomnia, anxiety, and the pressures of fame. On January 22, 2008, Heath's sister Katie called to check in on him. His final words were simple and reassuring. "Katie, I'll be fine." Hours later, he was found dead from an accidental overdose of prescription medications. Ledger had been pushing himself to the brink, especially while filming his haunting role as the Joker in The Dark Knight. Friends and family knew he wasn't sleeping, but no one could have predicted how close he was to collapse. His last words are heartbreaking in their normalcy. A brother calming his sister, perhaps believing he truly would be okay. Instead, the world lost one of its brightest talents far too soon. Heath's death turned him into a symbol of artistic brilliance mixed with personal struggle. While Ledger's life was marked by quiet battles, Steve McQueen faced his final days with defiance, leaving behind words that reflected his enduring spirit of rebellion. Steve McQueen, I did it. Steve McQueen wasn't called the King of Cool for nothing. From his roles in Bullet and The Great Escape to his off-screen love for racing and living dangerously, McQueen was the embodiment of rugged independence. When he was diagnosed with mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer, he fought it the only way he knew how, head-on. After undergoing a risky, unconventional surgery in Mexico in 1980, McQueen's final words were whispered triumphantly, "I did it." Sadly, despite surviving the procedure, his body couldn't hold on, and he passed away shortly after. Those words weren't just about the surgery. They were a reflection of McQueen's entire life. He was a man who defied odds, challenged authority, and lived life by his own rules. Even in his final moments, he viewed life as a challenge to conquer. Steve McQueen didn't fade quietly. He went out with the same defiant pride that made him a legend. But while McQueen's identity was rooted in rebellion, Bela Lugosi's final words revealed a man who could no longer separate himself from the character that defined and consumed his life. Bela Lugosi. I am Count Dracula. Bela Lugosi gave the world one of cinema's most iconic figures, Dracula. But the role that made him famous also became his curse. Typecast and unable to escape the shadow of the vampire, Lugosi's career dwindled as he struggled with addiction and poverty. When he passed away in 1956, his final words were chilling. I am Count Dracula. It was as if, in the end, Lugosi had become the very creature he portrayed. Whether those words were a moment of delirium or a reflection of how deeply the role had embedded itself in his identity, they symbolized a tragic truth. Lugosi died penniless, buried in his Dracula. Cape, forever linked to the character that both made and broke him. His last words serve as a haunting reminder of how Hollywood can immortalize an image while forgetting the man behind it. While Lugosi clung to his most famous role, Cary Grant left the world with grace and poise. True to the gentlemanly image he carried throughout his life. Cary Grant. I'm feeling fine. Cary Grant was the epitome of charm. Elegant, witty, and effortlessly sophisticated. Even as he aged, he maintained his polished demeanor, avoiding scandal and keeping his private life carefully guarded. In 1986, while preparing for a stage appearance, Grant suffered a massive stroke. When asked how he was feeling, his final words were calmly spoken. I'm feeling fine. It was classic Cary Grant, ever the gentleman, minimizing his distress to avoid worrying those around him. He passed away shortly after, leaving behind a legacy defined by class and composure. His final words weren't dramatic or profound, but they perfectly captured the man he was, graceful to the very end, handling even death with quiet dignity. Cary Grant's farewell was a reminder that true elegance isn't just about how you live, it's about how you leave. But where Grant's goodbye was understated, Elizabeth Taylor's last words reflected a life filled with drama, resilience, and the quiet acknowledgement that even the fiercest stars must eventually rest. Elizabeth Taylor. My body's tired. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She was Hollywood royalty. With violet eyes that captivated the world and a career spanning over 6 decades, Taylor became a symbol of beauty, talent, and resilience. But beyond the glitz of red carpets and the headlines about her 8 marriages, there was a woman who fought endless battles, both public and private. Throughout her life, Taylor endured more than most could imagine. She survived near-fatal illnesses, multiple surgeries, and chronic pain. Add to that the emotional toll of heartbreak, loss, and living under the constant gaze of fame, and it's clear that her journey was as challenging as it was dazzling. Yet, she never allowed herself to be seen as a victim. She was a fighter, fierce, passionate, and unapologetically herself. By 2011, after decades of health struggles, Taylor was confined to a hospital bed. But even in her final days, she was surrounded by family, friends, and the admiration of millions who viewed her as the last great icon of Hollywood's golden age. When the time came, her final words weren't filled with drama or grandeur. Instead, they were a quiet acknowledgement of a life fully lived. My body's tired. It was simple, honest. A graceful surrender from a woman who had given everything to her craft, to love, to charity, and to the world that watched her every move. Those words weren't just about physical fatigue. They were the culmination of a lifetime spent enduring, thriving, and shining through every storm. Elizabeth Taylor's passing marked more than just the end of a life. It symbolized the closing chapter of an era when stars weren't just celebrities. They were legends. And as she bowed out, she did so with the same elegance and strength that defined her. As one close friend said, Elizabeth didn't just survive Hollywood, she conquered it. And when she was done, she knew it. While Elizabeth Taylor found serenity in her final words, Robin Williams's departure left a deafening silence, a tragic reminder that even those who bring the most light to others can be consumed by their own darkness. Robin Williams, silent goodbye. Robin Williams spent his life bringing joy to millions. From Mrs. Doubtfire to Good Will Hunting, he wasn't just a comedian. He was a force of nature, blending humor with deep humanity. But behind the laughter was a man silently battling depression and, unknowingly, a devastating disease, Lewy body dementia. When Williams took his own life in 2014, there were no recorded last words, no farewell note, no dramatic goodbye. Just silence, a heartbreaking contrast to a life filled with so much noise, color, and energy. His passing shocked the world. How could someone who made everyone else smile be suffering so deeply? In truth, Robin's silence spoke volumes about the hidden pain so many endure in the shadows. His death became a wake-up call about mental health, reminding fans that even those who seem the happiest can be fighting unseen battles. As one friend said, Robin always knew how to end a scene, but none of us were ready for this final exit. While Robin's goodbye was unspoken, Patrick Swayze's final words were filled with love, a quiet testament to the bond that carried him through his toughest fight. Patrick Swayze, I love you. Patrick Swayze wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was a symbol of romance, resilience, and quiet strength. Whether he was lifting Jennifer Grey into the air in Dirty Dancing or whispering ditto in Ghost, Swayze had a way of making audiences believe in love, passion, and loyalty. But off-screen, his greatest love story wasn't scripted. It was the lifelong bond he shared with his wife, Lisa Nemi. When Swayze was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2008, doctors gave him little hope. But true to his spirit, he didn't surrender easily. He continued working, granting interviews, and facing the disease with the same grace and determination that defined his career. Throughout the battle, Lisa was always there, just as she had been since they were teenagers dancing together in Texas. As the months wore on and his body weakened, Swayze never lost sight of what mattered most. In September 2009, as he neared the end, he didn't offer any grand last words for the cameras or the world. Instead, he turned to the woman who had been his anchor through decades of highs and lows and simply said, I love you. It was a farewell stripped of fame, stripped of Hollywood, just a man expressing his final truth. For someone whose most iconic roles celebrated eternal love, it was a fitting end. Patrick Swayze didn't leave this world thinking of awards or roles. He left holding on to the one constant in his life. His passing was felt deeply by fans worldwide. But it's those final words that resonate most, a reminder that, in the face of death, it's not fame or fortune we cling to, but the people we love. As Lisa later reflected, it was always love with Patrick. That's what carried us through everything. While Swayze's last words were a testament to enduring love, Audrey Hepburn's final moments reflected a different kind of beauty. The quiet appreciation of life's simplest, most peaceful gifts. Audrey Hepburn. It's so beautiful. Audrey Hepburn was elegance personified. Whether gracing the screen in Breakfast at Tiffany's or dedicating her later years to humanitarian work, she carried herself with a quiet grace that captivated the world. In 1993, as she lay surrounded by family in her Swiss home, Hepburn's final words were spoken while gazing out at her garden. It's so beautiful. It was a fitting farewell from a woman who always found beauty in simplicity. After surviving war-torn Europe as a child and navigating the pressures of fame, Audrey's last moments were peaceful, an appreciation of nature, life, and the serenity she had finally found. Her passing felt like the closing of a delicate book, one filled with kindness, resilience, and timeless charm. Audrey Hepburn left behind not just films, but a legacy of compassion and quiet strength. While Audrey's final words were serene, Peter Sellers, ever the comedian, managed to leave the world with a line that captured his lifelong dedication to laughter. Peter Sellers. I feel fine. I suppose I'll have to do that again. Peter Sellers was more than just a comedian. He was a master of transformation. Known for disappearing into his characters, from the bumbling Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther series to the multiple roles he juggled in Dr. Strangelove, Sellers could make audiences laugh with a single glance or a perfectly timed stumble. But behind the mask of humor was a man often tormented by personal demons, failed marriages, and chronic health problems. By 1980, Sellers had suffered multiple heart attacks throughout his life, each one a reminder that his body couldn't always keep pace with his brilliant mind. Yet, True to his nature, when he was struck by what would be his final heart attack, he didn't respond with fear or despair. Instead, with his typical dry wit, he reportedly quipped, "I feel fine. I suppose I'll have to do that again." It was the ultimate Peter Sellers moment, deflecting the seriousness of death with humor, turning even his final moments into a punchline. For a man who lived through characters, perhaps laughter was his only way to face reality. He passed away shortly after, at just 54 years old, leaving behind a film legacy that continues to inspire comedians and actors alike. Sellers' final words weren't just a joke. They were a reflection of a man who, despite his inner struggles, chose to meet the end with a wry smile. In a world where many fear death, Peter Sellers made it part of his act, proving that sometimes the greatest comedians don't just make us laugh at life. They teach us how to laugh at the inevitable. His passing was mourned around the world, but his legacy lives on every time someone chuckles at Clouseau's clumsiness or marvels at his ability to turn chaos into comedy gold. As we reflect on these final words from legends like Sellers, one thing becomes clear. These aren't just fleeting moments lost to time. They are lasting echoes of lives lived boldly in the spotlight, reminding us that even the brightest stars have one last line before the curtain falls, and it's those words that stay with us forever. The final words that echo forever. In Hollywood, where every moment is rehearsed and every line is carefully crafted, it's the final, unscripted words that reveal who these stars truly were. When the cameras stop rolling and the spotlight fades, what remains is not the glamour or the awards. It's the raw, human truth spoken in those last breaths. These words, often simple yet profound, remind us that behind every legendary role was a person facing the same fate we all do. Some legends, like Humphrey Bogart or Peter Sellers, chose humor as their final curtain call, a last laugh in the face of mortality. Others, like Patrick Swayze or Elizabeth Taylor, spoke with love or quiet acceptance, revealing hearts that had given so much to the world. And then there are those whose final words left us with haunting mystery, like Marilyn Monroe or James Dean, their departures as enigmatic as their lives. These last words are more than just echoes of the past. They are windows into the souls of people we only thought we knew. They capture lifetimes of triumph, heartbreak, resilience, and vulnerability in a single sentence or gesture. For fans, they offer closure, a final connection to those larger-than-life figures who felt untouchable while alive. No amount of fame, fortune, or cinematic legacy can change the one truth that unites us all. Every story has an ending. But for these Hollywood icons, that ending wasn't just silence. It was a whisper, a statement, a reflection, something that continues to resonate long after they've gone. In the end, it's not the roles they played or the red carpets they walked that we remember most. It's those fleeting human moments when the legend stepped aside and the person spoke. These are the words that outlive the fame. These are the words that echo forever.